Hey guys, in this video I'm going to give you 9 steps in order to complete a Hess's Law problem. So we did the examples and we saw how to go about doing them, but it's really overwhelming at first when you're not used to this. So I'm going to break it down to a couple different steps so hopefully you're able to watch this video, have some hints or insights, and work through the problems a little bit easier. Remember, Hess's law states that if you include more than one chemical equation to produce a final equation, you must add the individual enthalpy changes to solve for the total enthalpy change. So, real people words, take all of the individual equations you have, adjust them accordingly, and then add up all of your delta H values. So, the steps that you need to follow. In this example, we are determining the heat required for the following reaction. We want 2 SO3s, 2 S's, and 3 O2s. The SO3 is before the arrow, and the S's and the O2s are after the arrow. So first, compare the first given equation to the final goal. So here's our first given equation. Notice I have an S and an O2, but they're on the wrong side of my equation. So step 2 states, adjust the equation and the heat value as needed. So here, I'm going to flip these. In addition to flipping these, notice I only have one S here, but I have 2 up here. So I'm going to flip them and multiply them by 2. So with my arrow, I'm going to have 2 SO2 on the left, 2 S, and 2 O2s on the right. So my delta H is going to be reversed. So instead of negative 296, it's going to be positive 296, and it's going to be multiplied by 2. So it's going to be 592 kilojoules. So that's the first 2 steps. Compare the first given equation to the final goal, adjust the equation and the heat values as needed, and then adjust the delta H as needed. Now step 3 is do it all over again with the second equation. So now we're going to look at the second equation, and we have SO3 after the arrow, but in our final goal, SO3 is at the beginning of the arrow. So for this one, I'm going to flip it. So here's my arrow. I have 2 SO3 plus 2 SO2 plus O2, and my delta H is being reversed, so 197.2 kilojoules. Okay, so steps 1 and 2 and steps 3 and 4 are exactly the same. Compare them to the given problem and adjust accordingly. Multiply, divide, reverse, whatever that may be. The rest of the steps are going to come at you really fast because I'm not going to show you all of the processes to go through. I'm just going to step them out for you. So step 5, repeat 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever combination you want to call it, for any equation given. You could have up to 3 equations, up to 7 equations, I don't care. You are going to do those 2 steps, compare them to the original, and adjust accordingly for as many equations that are being provided to you. Step 6, combine all of the items before the arrow. Step 7, combine all of the items after the arrow. So when I showed this in the last video, I had the arrow here. I did all of the stuff on this side in green and all of the stuff on this side in blue. Cross out any item that is on both sides. So if you see it on both sides, you can automatically ignore it, or simplify any item on both sides. If you have 2 H2 on the left and 5 H2 on the right, you can simplify them out and be left only with 3 H2 on the right. And then step 9, add up all of your delta H values to find your final delta H. Okay? So if you do step 8 and you have extra stuff left in your equation, and you're not left with whatever the final items should be, that means you missed a step somewhere. You either didn't multiply by a number or didn't reverse something. So at that point, that's when you want to go back and double check your work. But as long as you're left with whatever this goal is right here, you only have SO3 on the left, and you only have 2 S's and 3 O2s on the right, that means you could be done, add up your H values, and you're finished. So the 9 steps. 1 and 2, 1. Compare your given equation to your final goal. 2. Adjust your equation to match your final goal by either reversing or multiplying or dividing. 3 and 4, do the same 2 steps for the next equation. Step 5, do the same 2 steps for any equation left that you haven't touched yet. Step 6, combine all the items before the arrow with plus signs in between. Step 7, combine all the items after the arrow with plus signs in between. Step 8, cross out any item that is on both sides, or simplify any item that is on both sides. If you are only left with your final goal, you can move on to step 9, combine all of your delta H values for each individual equation. All right, hopefully these steps might make your life a little bit easier. I will see you in class so we can keep practicing.